Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. In this video I will be focusing on the basics of Microsoft Excel. I would like to emphasize that this video is suitable for freshers or users with little knowledge of Excel. Microsoft Excel is a very advanced tool for various sorts for calculations and data representation, but at the same time it can be used for very simple tasks as well. You can use Excel to enter all sorts of data and perform financial, mathematical or statistical calculations. These data that we input can be read simply in terms of numerical values, or it can also be automated to be shown in a more graphical and professional and user-friendly manner, for better understanding. This tutorial is a detailed beginner's tutorial. On the description area, I have mentioned the timestamps for your ease. This might help you look for specific lessons that you may be interested to navigate. Before we go on further, please make sure you subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to click on this bell icon to get notifications on future videos. Okay, now, let me open Microsoft Excel. Click on Start, and open Microsoft Excel. Once you have opened Microsoft Excel, you will come to this screen. In this screen there will be a plain workbook, which we will be using for this tutorial shortly. However, before we go further, let's look at some of these templates. These are some of the templates available for you by default. You can find any kind of template here to suit your needs. There are academic calendars, budgets, sales invoices, etc. Once you scroll further down, it will bring up more and more templates. Microsoft Excel has hundreds and hundreds of templates out here to suit your needs. In addition to the templates shown here, you can use the online search option here to find any specific template you are looking for. There is a whole bunch of them, from which you are free to choose any template that suits your needs. You are not limited to the templates shown on the initial screen when you open Microsoft Excel. You can also use the suggested search category. These are the most commonly used categories. For example, when you click on budgets, it will bring out a whole lot of budget-related templates. You can try clicking on one of the templates. For example, let me click on Household Monthly Budgets. This will make a copy of that as a spreadsheet, which you can open and use in Excel. This section here will give you a description on the use of this template. If you decide it's suitable to your needs, you can click on Create, and it will create a workbook with this template on it. Once the template has been created, you will notice much of the work is done for you. But, you may not need everything that is on the template. Therefore, you can use the template to change the data to suit your needs. You don't need to do any formatting or anything of that sort. All you might have to do is to change these details here, or any other details that you intend to change according to your needs. We are going to close this now and move on. We are not going to focus on this at the moment, because it's for another day. That's because this is a beginner's course, and therefore let us focus on the basics of Microsoft Excel. But just before we move from this section, over here to your right, you can see the section named Category. This is where you can find different types of budgets under each category. So, if you are looking at, for example, holiday budgets, you can click on Holidays and explore all the different types of holiday budgets. Or anything like monthly budgets, business budgets, or anything that you need. Although these templates can be very useful, we need to know more of the basics to help you utilize these templates more productively. Alright, that's all for this part. What we are going to do is go back and we are going to look at opening a new workbook. But before that, I missed out one more thing that I intended to share. This section here shows all the recent workbooks that you have worked on. Mine does not show much here because I'm logged into one of my new accounts which I hardly use. That's why there are not much recent Excel files here. However, I just wanted to show you what it looks like when there are recent Excel files that you have worked on. Therefore, I have created a new workbook and saved it for the purpose of this tutorial. If you are using a workbook frequently, say, for example, this workbook that I have saved, you can click on this little pin here to pin or unpin this file. Once you click on the pin, it shows that file on the recent section permanently. So, whenever you open Excel and you intend to use this file, it will be simply there for your use. You just have to click on it and it opens up for you to start working on it. This feature here helps you to save time, so that you don't have to go looking for your saved file. You can unpin it or pin it by clicking on this little pin. I have just unpinned it at the moment because I won't be using this file often. Now let us look at opening a new workbook. I am going to click on it and open a blank workbook. Once you have opened the workbook, the first thing we need to learn here is about the layout on the Excel file. And then, we will move on to some of the terms and functions available to use in Excel. If you have used any other Microsoft Office applications, you might be familiar with the layout at the top of the screen. However, it is very important to know the layout before we start working on it. And most importantly, the terms and its functions. However, since I will be using these terms throughout this tutorial, it's best you try to remember them. I will be explaining on the tabs, ribbons, groups and some of the other additional options available at this stage. Let me start with the tabs. This is where the tabs are, right at the top. We have the File tab, Home tab, and then you have the Insert tab, Layout tab, and more. When you click on any of these tabs, it drops down a ribbon. For example, when I click on the Home tab, it drops the Home ribbon. The Home ribbon contains the most frequently used commands in Excel. When I click on Insert tab, it shows the Insert ribbon, and so on. On each of these ribbons, we have groups. On the Home ribbon, we have a Font group, Alignment group, Number group, and so on. On most groups you might notice small arrows pointed downwards. When you click on this, it will show more options. That's mainly because there isn't much space available to show all options on the ribbon. So what Microsoft has done is, they have displayed the most commonly and frequently used options on the ribbon. And then given you the More option by clicking on this little arrow. Now, since that's out of the way, let's look at increasing the work area on this worksheet. If you would like more workspace on your screen, what I mean is to increase this highlighted area, you can get rid of the ribbon. And it will only appear if you click on the tab. Let me show you how it's done. Simply right-click anywhere on the ribbon and tick on Collapse the ribbon. This will hide the ribbon and give you more work area on your screen, which can be very helpful when you are working with lots of data. If you would like to bring back the ribbon, you can right-click again and deselect it, and you will have your ribbon back. Make sure you remember these terms that I am explaining you, because I am going to use them throughout this tutorial. There are a couple of other terms that you might need to know as well. Let's go through it now. Let's look at what is a workbook. A workbook is another word for your Excel file. Remember when I started Excel and clicked on a blank workbook to create an Excel workbook? That is what we are talking about here. This whole thing that you can see is a workbook. Inside a workbook you can have worksheets. I can create multiple worksheets inside a workbook. A worksheet is a collection of cells where you keep and manipulate the data. You can click on this plus sign to create a worksheet. You can keep adding multiple worksheets as needed by clicking this plus sign. You can also move the worksheet by dragging the worksheet to where you may need. By default, the worksheets are named as Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3, and so on. I can rename the worksheets as needed. Simply double-click here, and you can rename it. I will rename this as January, February, March, and so on. While we are here on worksheets, let us also look at how to differentiate each worksheet by changing its color. This can be very helpful when you are working with many worksheets. Simply right-click on the worksheet you would like to change the color, and go to Tab Color. Now, you can choose the color you prefer for this worksheet. For this example, I will choose red for the worksheet January. You can do the same for the other worksheets as well. Right-click on February worksheet and change its color to green. And for the March I will change it to blue. So that's how you change the worksheet tab colors. One more thing that I would like to mention with worksheets is that you can hide any of these worksheets. This can be helpful if you do not wish to share any information from that worksheet, or for any other reason you may have. Right-click on the worksheet you would like to hide and select Hide. Once you select it, the worksheet will be hidden. If you wish to unhide the worksheet, simply right-click, and then click on Unhide. This will bring up a little window, which shows all the worksheets that have been hidden. In our example, it's only January that we decided to hide, so nothing else will be there to unhide. Let me select January, and then click on OK. As you notice, the worksheet January is replaced back to where it was initially. Okay, that's enough for worksheets. Now that we have covered tabs, ribbon, groups, workbook, and worksheets, let's move on to a few more basic terms before we start working on an Excel worksheet. Alright, let's look at columns. The worksheet is made up of columns and rows. This here is a column. Column C, column D, column G, and so on. If I keep scrolling to the right, you can see more columns. The worksheet keeps making more and more columns automatically as you scroll. Now, let's look at rows. This here is a row. Row number 2, row number 3, row number 4, and so on. As you scroll further down, the worksheet keeps adding more and more rows automatically. These columns and rows are made up of cells. Alright, now let's look at what is a cell on a worksheet. If I am to put it simply, a cell is the intersection of the columns and rows. Every cell in a worksheet has a unique name, and the name of the cell is displayed here in this box. Every time I click a cell, the name of that cell appears in this box. This cell here is named as D5. So what it means is that this cell is the intersection of column D and row 5. When I click on it, Excel automatically recognizes the column and the row and names it as D5. This particular cell here is named as F7. This cell is the intersection of column F and row 7, which is F7. This cell here is O12, and so on. The name on each cell is quite significant in Microsoft Excel. The names of these cells are used for every calculation, and they play a huge role on data input, formulas, functions, and so on. When we start working on the worksheet, we will see how these names are put into use. Okay, now, let's look at something else. Let's have a look at this bar and what it is used for in Excel. This is called the formula bar. Basically, here you can type in any formulas, functions, or any data that you intended to use in Microsoft Excel. For example, when I click on a cell, any information that's on this cell will be displayed on the formula bar. Since the cells are empty, it won't show any information now. But as I start typing on the cell, it will be displayed on the formula bar. Let me type something for you. Everything that I type on the cell, it appears on the formula bar. Alternatively, you can also use the formula bar to write on a cell. First you need to choose the cell. Then click on the formula bar, and start typing in it. Let me show you. I am typing the word May. As you can see, when you type, it appears on the cell you chose earlier. Okay, let's move on and look at a few more terms in Microsoft Excel. Next, what we are going to look at is something called the range. A range is a group of cells in a worksheet. It could be any number of cells that are placed next to each other, which forms a range. It could be these group of cells. It could be this highlighted area. Or it could be this. However, as you can see, this range is from C3 to K20. You can name a range as well in Microsoft Excel. In this range, the range is from C3 to K20. You can type it in this bar here as C3, K20. That's how you write the name of this range. I am going to delete it for the moment. Just keep this in mind and it will be useful later. You will start to learn a lot more once you start using and learning more on Microsoft Excel. You will get very familiar eventually because you will be using them when applying on functions and formulas. Okay, those terms that we just discussed are some of the significant terminology for a start in Microsoft Excel. Now that we have gone through some of the most important terms about the layout, these terms will help you understand what we will be talking throughout this tutorial. Alright, let's start working on the worksheet. Throughout this tutorial, I might constantly zoom in, or zoom out, for my convenience, and it will also be easier for you to see what I am typing as well. Let's just look at a few ways of how to zoom in and out. There are 3 ways to zoom in, or zoom out. One of the ways is that you can click on View tab, and choose the zoom option here. This will give you the option to zoom according to your needs. I am not going to do any changes, I will leave it as it is. The other way to find your zoom option is at the bottom right corner. You can easily zoom in or out by clicking on plus or minus sign. The third way is to use the wheel on your mouse. While holding the control button, you can scroll forward to zoom in, or scroll backward to zoom out. If you are using a Mac, it will be the command button, which you need to hold down before scrolling. I will zoom in for the moment for better clarity. Okay, now that we got all these as a foundation to start working on Microsoft Excel. Let's begin with working and inputting data in Excel spreadsheet. To make things more interesting and easy to understand, let us start adding data into the worksheet. Let's say, for example, we want to create a list of students who contributed for a fundraising in your school. I will be using some formatting to begin with. It will be some basic formatting to go with creating the list. Let's start with putting a title for this list. Now this can be anything that you want to create on Excel. You can do a list on movie collection, games collection, book collection, or anything else that you intend to use Excel. Okay, let us get back to our example of creating a list of students who contributed for a fundraising event. I will click on this cell A1 and start typing, event fundraiser. You might have noticed that the data that we typed in this cell has spilled onto the other cell as well. But in reality it hasn't. What you see is not real. It is an illusion. The data is still stored in cell A1, thought it seems to be spilled over to the other cell. You can verify this by double-clicking on the cell A1. As you notice, all the data are stored in this cell. Anyway, don't worry about it. Just press the Enter key and I will explain how this works. Okay, now we have entered the title that we need for this example. Let us click on the cell B1 and see what happens with the data that seems to appear on it. If you click on the cell B1, you can see there are no data in it. This is how Microsoft Excel works and there is no need to worry. This can be easily rectified. And to make it obvious, let me type something on B1 and you will notice the illusion. And at the same time, the additional data that had spilled onto the other cell is not visible anymore. When I click on cell A1, you can see all the data that we had typed in. But most of it is hidden because we added data into cell B1. What we will do is, let us delete the data in B1, and find out how to make all the data visible on the cell A1, without any illusions. Bring the cursor in between the columns A and B, right on top of the line here. You will notice the cursor changes into a double-sided arrow. You can also do this for both rows and columns. You can simply move the cursor between any two columns and rows and adjust the size of the cell. However, getting back to our example, if you are using a mouse, move the cursor in between the columns A and B, click on the line, hold, and drag it to the right, until all the data in the cell A1 is visible inside the cell. As you can see, all the data is visible inside the cell A1. And it also looks nicer and easy to understand the data. And also it's easier to work on Excel if all the data is visible. There is one other way to resize the cell according to the length of the data in the cell. Simply bring the cursor in between both the columns A and B, and right on the separation line double-click on it. Excel will automatically resize the column according to the length of the data in the cell. However, there is one thing we can notice. All the cells on the column A is now the same size. Once we start entering more data into the cells below, it may or may not fit in. Or sometimes the cells will be too big for the data. Don't worry. It's an easy fix and we will look into that on the next video, which will be part 2 of this video. The links are available on the description below. Okay, let me add some headings for the list what we are going to create. On the first cell, let me put in the date. And on the next, the name, amount, payment type, transaction or check, no. Comments. Now that we have our headings, let's look at going through some of the basic formatting for these headings. But before that, you might have noticed, I was using the keyboard keys to navigate between cells after typing each heading. You can use the Tab key to move sideways between cells. And you can use the Enter key to move downwards between cells. To move to the right, use the Tab key. And to move to the left, hold down the Shift key and then press the Tab key. Similarly, if you want to move downwards, use the Enter key. And if you want to move upwards, hold on to the Shift key and then press on the Enter key. You also can use the arrow keys to move any direction on the worksheet. The other way is to use the mouse. Click on the cell you want to move and you can navigate between cells. However, with using Excel as a beginner, it's best if you get used to using your keyboard to do things. This will become very helpful and handy when you start using Excel for more advanced projects. Okay, now you have your headings and title. We can use some basic formatting to change the presentation of our list here. I will click on the title first and try to change the font and few other formatting. Click on this drop-down arrow here, and it will bring up a list of fonts available for formatting. I will choose Arial. And then I am going to change the size of the font to look a bit bigger than the headings. Let me change it to 48. Okay, that's a bit too big. However, if you make a mistake or an error, you can undo it easily. As in this scenario, the font size we chose is a bit too big. You can simply this left arrow and it will undo the error to how it was before. You also can redo if you think it was okay as before by clicking on this right arrow. But I am going to undo it and change to font size again. This time let me change it to 26. Okay, that's the perfect size for the title. As you had already noticed, the size of the row automatically changes to suit the size of the font. We don't need to adjust it any further. Let me also bold the font of the title. I am also thinking of changing the color of the title to blue. I am going to do something similar to the headings as well. But here I want all the heading to look the same. Let me select all the headings first and do the formatting together. It helps me to save a lot of time. I am going to click on Date and drag all the way up to Comments. Now we have selected all the headings. Firstly, let me change the size of the font. This time it's going to be smaller than the title. I will bold the fonts. I am not going to change the color here. But what I am going to do is add a style to the headings. Click on this drop-down arrow here, and it will bring up various styles to choose. You can choose anything you want. As you hover over these styles, it will show you how it looks on your worksheet. I'm going to choose a theme style. This one looks better, so I'm going to choose it. Okay, we can notice some of the text is hidden. I will double-click in here as explained earlier to adjust the size of the cell. It does look much better now. Alright, let me enter a few details under each heading and then get back to you. Okay guys, now that we have entered all the details into this list, there are a few things we might need to change here or make it look better. Let's look at going through some of the formatting options to make this list look a bit more appealing and easy to understand for our viewers. And of course, that is the whole point of creating this list in Microsoft Excel. First of all, let me make the data in this column visible to our viewers. Okay, everything seems to be clear in this list. As I said earlier, let us see how we can use Excel to make this list look a bit more attractive and easy to understand. This is where Microsoft Excel becomes really useful for your tasks. Okay, let's look at a few things you can do. Actually, there are many things you can do. But as it's a beginner's course, let's look at a few things you can do for a start. You have the details of the amounts of money you have raised for your event in this list. You can get the total amount by clicking on this cell and dragging all the way down until your last transaction. Highlighting these amounts will show you the total at the bottom here, which is $2,280 collected in total. But if you want to show it in the sheet itself, especially if you are printing it as a report, you can use the sum function to calculate the totals. Let us see how we can apply the sum function to this list. You can use the sum function to get the total of this column. Select the cell in which you want the totals to appear, and then you can use this auto sum function. This will automatically add up the figures for you within its selected range. Once you click on this function, what I normally do is, it will automatically select a range of cells. It will only select cells that have numbers on it. Anything above this cell 200 is text format, so it wouldn't select that cell. So make sure there are no cells with texts within the range you wish to get a total. This here has selected the cell from C3 to C15, which is what we intend to total up. Now what you do is press the Enter key and it will display the total for you. Now you can see the total calculated here is same as the amount you highlighted earlier. Okay, let me use some formatting to highlight the totals. Select the Borders option from here, and let me select the double line to show the totals. Next thing is probably you would like to show the $sign for these amounts. Just click on the column C, and then click on the $sign. Or, what you can do is, select the range you would want the $sign to appear, especially if you want the $sign to appear in front of certain selected amounts. And then click on the $sign. That should give you the desired result as earlier approach. However, I have used the $sign as it is my currency I normally use. But if you do not use the $sign, and you have your own currency that you use according to your country or region, you can easily change the sign according to your needs. Simply select the range as earlier. Click on this arrow button next to the $sign. And that will give you a few other currency signs that are most commonly used, like the dollar, the euro, the Chinese currency, the pounds, etc. If you do not find the currency sign that you are looking for in the suggested area, select the More Accounting Format option, and that will bring up the additional formatting options. Under that, go to the Accounting section, and then under the Symbols drop-down option, you can choose any currency symbol you want. Here it has all the currency symbols in the world as needed. Just scroll down and choose the currency symbol you are after and click on OK. I will leave it as it is because I use the $sign for my work. The other thing is, if you would like to get rid of the zeros after the decimal point, select the range and then click on this icon to reduce the number of decimals, or click on this icon to increase the number of decimal points you wish to display on your list. However, I will leave it at 2 decimal points for this tutorial. The next thing we can look at is the dates here. We can change the format of the date as per your need. Select the range to which you wish to apply the format change. Then, right-click within the range and select the Format Cells option. Select the date category. However, there are many categories for additional formatting. You can choose them according to your needs. Here in this example, we will be choosing the date category, because we are going to make changes to the date format. Here you can choose the type of format you wish to apply for your date. If you want to have a lengthy format, you can choose this type. Or the short format like this one. Or the year to come in the front. What I will do is, I will select this one for our example here. And then click on OK. As you can see, the format of the dates have changed. Okay, let us see how we can make this a bit more interesting. Let's color code the entries based on the mode of payment for better understanding for our viewers. For example, let us select all the cash transactions and apply a certain color for those transactions. First of all, select all the cells of a single cash transaction, and then while holding the Control button, select the other cash transactions. Now you have two options to change the color. Either you change the color of the data or you change the color of the cells. But for this instance, for this tutorial I will change the color of the cells. Let me choose the color green for cash transactions. If you would like to change the color of the data in the highlighted cells, you can click on this icon and change the color. As you can notice, while you hover over the color of the data also changes. But I am not going to change the color. I am going to leave it as it is. For the check transaction, I am going to apply red color. And for the bank transfers, I am going to apply blue, and so on. Okay, now you can see, we have applied different colors to transactions, based on payment mode. Let us see a preview of how it would look after we print this sheet. Go to File, and then Print. As you can see, we do have a little problem. We can only see a section of the list that we had created. The other part of the list is missing. We are unable to see the transaction in the comment columns of the list. Let me show you. Go back. As you can notice, there is a dotted line that has automatically popped up, separating the list into two sections. Which means, anything after this dotted line won't be printed into the same paper. And only this section of the list will be printed as it was on the print preview section earlier. This is because we have exceeded the print area. We can try to bring the whole list into the print area, either by changing the layout of the print page or altering the size of the list we prepared. Since we don't want to mess things around, let us try to change the orientation of the page and see what we can do about it. Currently the print area is set to Portrait. Let's change it to Landscape and see what happens. As soon as you clicked on Landscape, you notice the dotted line moved to the end of the list. This means that the whole list that we created should now be able to be viewed on the print preview area. Let us go back to print preview area and see what has changed. Okay, as said, we are able to see the whole list and it looks good for the viewers and very well presentable. Let me do a few more changes with the formatting, so that the list looks complete and easy for our viewers to read and understand. Let me go back. Let me move the heading to the middle of the list. Select the cells within the list area. Go to Home. Click on the drop-down on the Merge and Center option. You can see there are many other options. You can try them on your own. Let me choose the Merge and Center option for this example. What happens when you choose this option is, it merges all the cells into one cell, and then brings all the data to the center of the merged area. Let me also change the background color for this cell. Probably a lighter blue shade. Let's go back to print preview and see how it looks. It does look much better when the heading is centralized. You can also centralize other data in your list. For example, you can centralize the data in these cells. Select the range of cells. Instead of using the merging option like we did earlier, we will use the center option to centralize the data, because there is no cells to merge in this instance. You can use the right option, or left option, but I will leave it at center. Same thing I'm going to do for the data in this column as well. Now that we have covered that, let's see how we can add borders to this list. Select the full range of cells in this list. Click on Borders and then let me choose Thick Borders. Before that I should have added the borders for the cells, so that it's easy for the viewers to understand the data within the cells of rows and columns. And then let's do the thick border again. Let us see how this looks now. Go back to File. Print. And, there you go. It does look much better than before. So these are some of the very basic things that you can do for a start in Excel. There is much more for you to learn in Excel. You can do this for every month and then have a summary at the end of the year by linking all the pages and the totals and data into one sheet. You can also use functions to get separate information on all the lists. For example, you can use a function to separate all the cash transactions of each month and make a summary of the cash transactions at the end of the year. So as you can see, there is so much that you can do with Microsoft Excel. I will do a part 2 of this video with more details. If you do have any questions, please do leave it at the comment section, and I will try to get back to you to my earliest. Therefore, please do like my video, subscribe to my channel, and do not forget to click on that bell icon to get notifications on my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.